going to do a race recap. I went down to Milwaukee for my first race of the season, thoroughly got my butt kicked, so that was a good wake-up call. And I'll go through some of my theories in the video that's just about to start. So nothing in this video has anything to do with launching your product, brand, or service. So this is strictly about bike racing. If you're not interested in that, you can skip this one. If you're interested in bike racing, you can see exactly what I did wrong and what I think are some of my problems with my fitness. Does it? See what happens. Alright, so we are starting off the race. I get my whole shot victory here. Wish that counted for something. I apologize in advance for the numbers not lining up with the footage. I am working on getting a Garmin camera so I won't have to deal with this, but in the meantime I have a GoPro and I'm lining up the footage with the Garmin file, and as you can see that's not very successful for me apparently. So the whole shot process for me goes like this. I always start in the small ring. It's a little tip I picked up from a friend of mine, John Robertson, a couple years ago, and it works great. You get right out the front, easy peasy, and then especially with electronic shifting, it's very simple to get into the big gear up in front, and then you can continue to push the pace. So it's a great place to jump out. It works great in cyclocross as well if you happen to have the opportunity to use that, essentially just starting a much smaller gear than you think, and then give yourself a little bit of time to shift. So in any event, off to a start here. Following Jade, my little conversation with Jade a minute ago was, do you ever get the feeling people are watching you? So certainly that's the case. So this is our first little move up the road. Carlos is a teammate of Jaden's, and everyone is watching Carlos. He just went up the road there. Certainly going to get the bees moving behind, and sadly, myself included. I probably should not have moved on that. Being in a breakaway today was never something I thought would be successful for me. I just wanted to hang on and win, or I'm sorry, hang on and finish. But you get all worked up in the heat of the moment instead of sticking to your plan. You feel great, especially in the first 2 minutes here, and you think you can handle that kind of pace. So I jumped up. You may have seen again the watts are misaligned, but you saw me pump close to 1,000 watts to catch that little move. So that hurt. And again, I don't have heart rate on here. I wish I did. You could see that I'm hurting a little bit more. So this is a fun course. It's really an easy place to race. And they used to run it the other direction, and there was one turn in there that was kind of screwy. But this year, at least this year that I showed up, they ran it counter to what I've done in the past, and I like it much more. It's very, very safe. So there's a really good dose of wind on this course. I'm not quite sure I remember where it was hitting me in terms of what's the headwind and what's the tailwind as we roll around, but you might be able to tell over time by the speed and the pace that we're putting in some of these areas. So it's Mike Budd over to the right. Mike's a great racer as well, and he's going to get a little bit of attention here when he goes up to the front too. So there's a ton of great guys in there, way more talented than I am. But I just try to key in on a few people and see if I can hang with them. And later on, I go for a move that was ill-advised, and that's what ended up popping me out of the race. So just to kind of give you the overview, I did the Masters 123 race here, and then I turned around and after I got dropped and had some time to rest, I turned around and did the Pro 123 race. And I also got dropped from that race. So this was my first race of the year. First time really moving the legs this fast. Haven't even really done any hard group rides to this point. And I knew that would be an issue for me. I'm always slow to adapt to outdoor riding versus indoor riding. Just that speed in the legs just doesn't come to me as quickly as apparently some of these guys do. So in any event, like I said, I tend to hang up close to the front, and maybe that's a mistake over time. It maybe cost me a few more watts than I need to. So like this point in the race, there's really not a ton of reason for me to be 5 or 6 deep. I could have been back 15, 20, trying to ride along with a few different people on the left and right and be in the middle of the peloton, and that would have probably saved me a couple watts here and there. So my threshold, just so you know, is 315 watts, 312, somewhere in that range. So for me to be continually over 300 watts is a dangerous place for me to be. and eventually that I pay the price for that. So this is just the tiniest of a hill that we hit, but other than that, it is a pancake flat course. So there was, I think, 35 guys lined up in this race, if I remember what the official said in the beginning. So it's a pretty good crew for Wisconsin spring racing. I was pretty happy with that. So it's good to see your summer friends out. A couple guys came up from Chicago. This is in just outside of Milwaukee, to the north side of Milwaukee is where Menominee Falls Crit is. I guess if you want to call this a crit, it's more of a circuit race, really. So I've noticed, just looking at some of this footage before, I know the GoPro changes your perspective, and that fisheye makes it look like you're much further away from objects than you really are, but it's a consistent issue with me that I don't ride close enough to people's wheel to get the full benefit of the draft. And like right now, I'm not sure the side that I'm on makes a lot of sense. And there you go. Now I'm in the right spot. So there could have been a guy behind me or onto the side of me that was blocking me out of that draft potentially, but probably not. It's probably just me not paying attention to the wind as much as some of these other folks. So be it. I think temperature-wise, let's see if it's on there. Temperature-wise down there was 60 something. So it was one of their first really nice days of the year. I think that's Robert Berry going off the front there. Another strong rider. Really made some massive gains in the last 2 years. So good for Berry's or Robert. He put in a lot of work, and it's definitely showed off last year and obviously this year already. So here following Mike. Mike's Mike's a workhorse. Does not mind pulling whatsoever. So I kind of figured Mike would close that up, and sure enough, he did. Thanks, Mike. You're the best. A couple other things I know. I was looking at some of the bikes, and I had on this race my Aero road bike because my other bike was not functional, and my wheels are a 404 up front and an 808 in back, and I've just been having a lot of doubts with that setup lately. That it's just a little too much, and it doesn't allow me to accelerate as quickly as I need to. So when I race my other road bike, the traditional road bike Tarmac, it seems to respond better. I don't struggle as much to catch accelerations, and it's a good deal lighter, but it also has shallower wheels, and I just feel like it accelerates a little bit quicker. It's a little snappier than the Ridley Noah I'm on in this race. So I hate to blame the equipment because it is definitely not the equipment. In fact, there's Jaden with a 404-808 combo, so yeah, it's probably not the equipment. Blame the motor, right? So again, my winter was not bad. I came into it a little later than I would have liked. I was busy with the Kickstarter for the Weatherneck in November, and then December was just bonkers as well with family stuff, Christmas, and then we're selling still a ton of Weathernecks, and I was dealing with production and trying to get all those things going. But everybody's got a job, so what do? None of these guys race full time for their career, so they're all in the same boat I am. Just excuses, I guess. That might not be the case with the pro race later, but I'm only going to show the Masters 123 race because I got tired of trying to pair up this Garmin data with the GoPro, and 20 minutes is probably long enough for anybody to watch this. If you're on the trainer in the winter or stuck on the trainer, I would suggest listening to some music instead of me, but you do what you like. You do you, buddy. I'll do me. Fair enough? Alright, so a little move up the outside. I see, like in my head, I was on that guy's wheel. In reality, I'm not, but I'm going to still follow him up to get back up to the front of the race, which, it's not the end of the world, but it's just a lot more wattage than I should be doing. There's 640 watts. You see the watts delayed, but anyway, that acceleration a second ago was 600 plus watts for a pretty good duration.
it's just not a smart use of power. There's just not a compelling reason to move up to the front right then, at least that I could see in the video. Maybe in real life I had a different feel for things, but and see, here you go. Now we all mushroom out. Everything slows right back down. I could have saved all those 600 watts um, to use at some other point down the road, but such is life. I guess the one advantage of getting dropped is that I don't have to do the voiceover for quite as long. I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrition. I've been trying some different things on the nutrition side of things, and overall, I feel like it's worked out really well this year. But this race was not about energy or cramps or any of that stuff. I just didn't have the speed in my legs to be able to hang with these guys. So when I got dropped, it wasn't because my legs hurt or anything like that. It was just I was maxed out. My lungs weren't cooperating anymore, and it's lights out. Obviously, we'll get to that a little bit later. But so nutrition-wise, before this race, I had a pretty good meal. Forget what it was, but I know it was about 3 hours in advance. This race was taking place at 3:30 in the afternoon, 3:05 start time maybe, some 3:15, somewhere in there. And I can't for the life of me remember what I had for lunch, but I know it was about 11:30 or 12 o'clock I had lunch. I left for the venue, my house, at 12:45, so that gets me there around 1:30, 1:45. 15 minutes to mess around, get your number, change clothes, get on the bike. I had about 25 minutes of a good warm-up, which is about the minimum I need, so that was fine. I can't really blame that. I did notice when I pull up, Carlos, Jaden, a couple other guys, they're already suited up. They're already out warming up as I'm still parking my car. So, clearly they put a little more time and attention into their warm-ups than I did on this particular day, at least. So maybe there's something to be said for that. Also, they train way more hours than I do in a week, so that's probably most of it. So back to nutrition. I've been really on this kick of sugar water, and I'll talk about it in future vlogs. But while I got my bike racer people here, I thought I'll just review that. So I've been foregoing traditional energy drinks lately and opting for just sugar with water, and then I'll put a squirt of flavor in there from like those Mio things or whatever they are, just to give it some taste. And it's been working really, really well. The first week I was doing that, it was awesome. The first workout I did, it was amazingly different, and I really fueled for that workout quite a bit more than I had been or probably have ever done. And I could really feel a difference on that particular day a few months ago. Um, since then, it hasn't been quite as noticeable, but I probably haven't been as focused on it either. So, and in fact, what I found is that the sugar water works really well, but it does make me drink more throughout the ride. So 99.9% sure I actually used unflavored Heed in this race, so I wouldn't be concerned about drinking too much through the race. I had one bottle with me, and I parked a bottle on the side of the road because I knew I was going to race back to back. So I'm pretty sure that's what I'm drinking during the race. But before the race, I know I had 2 bottles of the sugar water, a bottle of regular water, and then a bunch of fruit on the way down, and had some fruit for the way home. See, again, I'm on the wrong side of the world here with the wind. Everybody's tucked over to the left, and I'm just out riding on my own to the right. No idea why I'm doing that. Really need to pay attention to the wind. It's actually never been a strong suit of mine. So there's a little movement there. Everybody's pumping out some watts. Let's see where I end up here. Yep, another big blast of 700 watts. This one, just even looking at the footage, I think that one's worth putting a little movement into. Yep, and there's the split. So that's Carlos, and he's holding back. I want to say, nope, that's later on I do that move. So, okay, everything's going to chill out now. Everybody who didn't put out the 600 or 700 watts are going to come back on. And I feel like that's something I need to work on, is I don't have to follow every move. I certainly don't close them. You'll never see me doing that. But I don't have to go with all these guys all the time, but for whatever reason, I get suckered in every time. So I feel like I burn a lot more watts than I need to. And I don't have that many to play with, so that's a problem. All right, spread all the way across the race here, or the road. I know what you're thinking. It's probably not a great place to be, even though we're not going real hard right now, but any amount of time with your nose in the wind is not time well spent, unless you're attacking. So, for anyone who doesn't know me, which hopefully is more than one person, I am more of a sprinter than anything else, which is cool and all, especially in the lower levels when you're cap 4 and 5. Sprinting power is amazing. You will definitely win races. But when you get up into these levels, I'm currently a cat 2, sort of barely a cat 2. These guys can just do so much more sustained power. So the 4-5 groups tend to, they'll go hard for a second, or even the Masters 3-4 I was in last couple years. They'll go hard for a couple minutes or maybe even 10 minutes. But then there's always a good chance to recuperate. I mean, you're sort of seeing that here right now. We're definitely getting a break, but there's somebody kick the hornet's nest again, and off we go. Oh, this is the one. I want to say this is the one. So Jaden is moving up, and I'm pretty keyed in on Jaden's wheel. And he puts in yep, there he goes. He puts in an attack, and it's coming over the top of an attack, and then this is where I put all my chips on the table. So I'm going to go with Jaden here. I know that's not a smart idea. I do not have the fitness to follow someone like that up the road. Jaden would be more than happy to sit out here all day if the field would give him a glimmer of hope. And see here, like, you see my shadow? I'm turning around instead of closing that gap. And I guess I did back off. Okay, that's going to cost me. So I put in a lot of work. And there goes a little break. And I'm looking desperately. You can see my shadow. I'm looking desperately for the field. Oh, okay, I'm not going to do that break. Interestingly, that was a strong move. So I'm not upset with my instincts. I just don't have that kind of power to sit up there with them. So there goes the move to close it back down. And I am struggling to stay on that group. And you will see me continue to struggle. For how much longer? Oh, not much longer. So again, just not tucking in and finding a wheel. I think I finally get one here coming up. Yep. That's Carlos again. Interestingly, this brake, apparently, when I got dropped, the brake that went up the road must have gotten pulled back because it reshuffled for the guys who got on the podium. So there I pull out of the rotation. I'm just in people's way. Tell them to go through. I'm suffering. I'm definitely popping. And this will not end well. And unfortunately, I did not put the heart rate on there so you could see that I'm not fibbing. It really hurt. Yeah. Bye-bye. Yep. You feel like when you watch the footage later that, well, why wouldn't you just grab those wheels when they went by? There I finally got my act together for a second and try to catch this wheel. There's a teammate of mine in that group. He's raced 2 times already. This is his 3rd race. Somehow, amazingly, he doesn't keel over and die and stays into this group the whole way through the ride. Yeah, tried to put in some power there to be able to catch that, and just it's not happening. I can see up the road, it's strung out, single file. There's no hope that it's going to come together anytime soon. So that will spell the end of my race. I'll spare you the Pro 123. It was largely the same situation. I hung on for about the same amount of time, about 20 minutes, and then that was about the end of it. So No big deal. I had no expectations for this race. I'm not upset about it by any means. Not worried about it. I'll get the speed in my legs. On the way back home, I talked with a friend of mine and who did this race. That was his third race there, Brent, and we talked about getting a harder group ride put together so we can really get some of the speed in our legs like these guys have. And so we started organizing that. I actually had the first ride this week, and I really put myself to the test out there and suffered and suffered and suffered, and you know, that pays dividends. And also going down and racing. So here's a tip. What I should have done is I should have just come to almost a complete stop and waited for the group to come all the way around again and tried to catch on the tail end of this and then gotten a few more minutes of race pace. That would have been a good use of my time. Rolling around, or eventually I get my head screwed on straight and I kind of just do my own little time trial thing.
Save it someday.
I wasn't sure I wanted to keep racing at that point, but that's what I should have done. So, like I was saying, that's what I should have done. I should have let the race come around, pick me up, and try to hang on with those guys a little bit longer, but I did not. So, between now and me racking the bike, I did the Pro 123. So, I had all that time to roll around. I did 20 minutes of the P123 race, and again, same thing there. I should have just waited till the group came around and picked me up and got some more race miles with those guys as well. So instead of getting 40 minutes total race time, I probably could have gotten at least 60 minutes if I'd waited for those folks. So, good tip. I'll do that in the future. Yeah, I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine. That's all I got for you tonight. See ya.